So let's move into our program. And this is the basis of this gathering. The horrific event that occurred in Oxford, not only was it local, but it was national, it was worldwide. And as I stepped back, I said, not only is this so unfortunate, but maybe there's something we could do to help prevent it from happening again. And that is, I think, the basis of this gathering. So I reached out to the city of Detroit and I asked around, who can we bring together with this group to talk about not only what you might be able to determine are symptoms of this kind of event, but what do you look for? What do you see? And then more importantly, what actions can you take? Who can you reach out to? What can you do to be part of a solution that just might prevent that from happening? So I did that, and with the good fortune, I was able to cross paths with Alvin Sims and Cynthia Sims. They are part of a program in the city of Detroit. Both are LMSWs and well-trained in working with that. So I want to turn it over to both of them to talk about their initiative. They have a presentation and they're going to take questions as well along the way. The interactive, I'll also be watching the chat. And so Alvin and Cynthia, welcome to the Rivertown Detroit Association meeting. We greatly appreciate your time and thank you very much. So I'll turn it over to both of you.
Great, thank you, Chip. Good evening, everyone. And it is definitely a pleasure to be with you tonight. I do know that the circumstances are not great, but however, I do believe in hope and joy and the possibilities and next steps. And so that's what Alvin and I plan to do tonight. It is not often that he and I, that our positions kind of intersect. So tonight they have done so. And so we have prepared for you, a presentation, but we will definitely have enough time to answer questions or thoughts or comments as we go along and throughout the presentation as well. And so with that, let me just share just a little bit about myself, 30 seconds. A recent retiree of one of the largest school districts in the city, have been there for 33 years, working with children with disabilities, families, as well as administrators and teachers. I was a behavior specialist working primarily with students with challenging behaviors, and also working with programs such as positive behavior intervention supports, providing those interventions and strategies to schools throughout the city, as well as programs to assist parents and resources. And I'll be sharing a little bit with you tonight in regards to that. Also married to the other half that's on here tonight. And we work together sometimes with family counseling and the works of that. And so with that, we have pooled our resources together and want to support community groups such as yours in times such as this. This is hit in the back door. And so we wanted to be able to be a part of the solution as well. So thank you for having us. Alvin?
Yep, and I'm Alvin. And I'm retired also, 3 years from the Detroit public school system. And I worked with worked in the prison before, worked as a probation officer before. So I have a large experience working with different elements. With the Detroit public schools, I was a social worker. I was the dean of students for almost 18 years. My last 5 years, I was a trainer for the Detroit public schools, training the teachers, the principals, and students in restorative practice. I'm also a licensed trainer in the social resilience model. So we enjoy trying to make a difference. I'm an agent of change. I just want to make a difference and leave hope and possibilities for our community. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Great. So tonight, addressing youth violence, we are all impacted. Next slide.
Okay.
And so with that, as it's coming up, as Alvin is shifting with the workshop as well, I'm sorry, with the PowerPoints, school shootings terrifying both students, educators, parents, and the community. And so that's what has had us here today. With that, before I get started, I see Alvin has the form up now. I'm sorry, the slide up. So if we can have devices on mute during the presentation would help us get through. Place questions in the chat, although we will have you come off mute at times to, engage, because I see it's a very small group. Be aware of airtime, because we do want everyone's voice to be heard, and we encourage you definitely to participate in the conversation, because this is definitely a conversation, and your cameras are optional. We would love to see your faces, but I do understand this is dinner time, and so taking care of your other needs as well. So in the chat, if you will, though, for me, a quick icebreaker. Normally we kind of go around the room and when we are face to face, but we've had to learn how to pivot to the Zoom or the virtual community. So in the chat, if you can write down the city you currently live in, if you just write in the chat, the city you currently live in. And next, if you can write in the chat, are you a parent, grandparent, uncle, or aunt, or all of the above? Because some of us wear dual roles, if you will. So let us know. And then also, last question, have you ever witnessed a shooting or been involved in a shooting? So again, just briefly in the chat, just to get some energy into the conversation, the city you currently live in, if you're a parent, grandparent, uncle, or aunt, or all of the above. And last, have you ever been involved or witnessed a shooting? So as you take about 20 seconds to do so, I'll turn it back over to Alvin and explain and introduce Detroit Youth Violence Preventive Initiative. And thank you. I see a lot that are coming in to chat.
So we work with the Detroit Youth Violence Prevention Initiative. It's an initiative that comes out of the chief's office, right? We don't work for the city, we work for the chief of the police out of his office. So City Camp is a middle school and violence prevention program that's usually ran by the police department and mentoring. Okay, Ceasefire, which I'm a part of, is trying to help young people, and I'm a resource counselor. And what I do assessments and evaluations to see where a young man is, or women, but we primarily work with young men to determine what their needs are. Do they need to go back to school, tickets paid for, tattoos removed? Sometimes we have to move them out of the city because of gang violence. Brotherhood, no boundaries. Sisterhood, no boundaries. We have a team that go into the schools and we talk with young people about choices and responsibility. Stop the Violence is a training program that we have with D-Win. Summer Strategies, that's where we get young people employment. We get young people employments with the city. Youth Voices of Detroit, when we was having our protests during the Black Lives Matters and other matters downtown, we will pull young people off the streets, talk with them, and train them how to advocate in a peaceful and a positive way. They get internships and employment. Drive to Thrive is a driver's training program. A lot of our young people are driving dirty, driving on the streets without license or insurance. So we try to help in the system with that. So let's let journey begin. And my wife is going to take over from here.
So school shootings in America. If you look at the slide in front of you, as I was doing research, the deadly mass school shootings since Columbine, I forgot about that there were also in the past school shootings on campuses as well. And so again, as we are looking globally across the United States, and I'm gonna bring you up to the present, but since Columbine, which is 1999, those were the actual shootings that were on universities and in your school settings, K-12. When I'm speaking of schools, I'm speaking K-12 schools, and you see the number that's attached to each of those school shootings. Next slide, please. And so when we see the statistics in regards to school shootings, and this is all relevant to and leading up to what we are going to be delving into deeper, 93% of school shooters plan their attack in advance. I'm going to say that again. 93% of the school shooters plan their attack in advance. 4 out of 5 school shootings, one person had prior knowledge. And I would say probably more, but at least one has known or had knowledge of that something was getting ready to happen. Guns used in about 68% of gun-related incidences at schools were taken from the home, a friend, or a relative. So our youth, in doing research and looking at incidences that happened in the past, the guns were coming from relative, friends, or home. They were not getting them from the streets as the young adults were. And I'm speaking again of K-12 children. An estimated 4.6 million American children live in a home where at least one gun is kept, loaded, and unlocked. So again, in the home, accessible to them that are minors, locked and unloaded. 39% of parents wrongly believe children don't know where a gun is stored in the home. When I would have parent meetings and conversations would come up in regards to they had firearms to protect their home, and my child or my children don't know where the guns are kept, when I would have groups or interventions with children, 95% of them said they knew exactly where the guns were hidden in the home. As of September 2021, there were 170 school shootings in total. That was in the United States. Now, this is not even speaking of Oxford. They were not included in this number. This was the highest number of school shootings since 1970. When doing research, I went back. 1970 is when they were having school shootings, and I didn't even know about that, at the time. I mean, until I started doing extensive research. One more slide. Can you go back for me? I'm sorry. It was one more. And the last, okay, that's where I got the information. For my scientist that's on, just wanted to let you know where, in fact, I got my statistic from. Thank you, Alvin. So the grid here that you see, the number of K-12 school shootings in the United States, again, I said from 1970 to 2021 by an active shooter. You can see the grid where on the left of the screen from 1990, you see the numbers. And when we go to 2020, I believe this goes until 2020, you can see by vision the increase. And so we do have to have conversations such as these, because there's something wrong. Even with the guns in the home that are locked and put away, there's a problem because it continues to happen. And one is too many. So let's frame the warning signs. So we're getting to the nitty gritty. Let's frame the warning signs. Many warning signs, but I'm going to kind of condense them and then we'll fan back out. Social media posts. That's where my students, my children, your children, that's where they interact on social media. It's almost like a living or a live diary that I used to have back in the day, but they post everything on social media. Many times the active shooters will post manifestos of what they're going to do before it happens. And then students or others hear about it in the community before it happens. And when something happens, you always hear, oh, they had that on their social media post, or we heard that last week, or we heard that 2 days ago, and no one shares. The next, and I'll go through drawings and journals. Many times the shooters or students that are at risk draw their feelings. They journal their feelings. Some still go to social media, but others, there are things that they will put down in their notebooks. And as I train and speak to my teachers, when they come across, they are putting in their writings, with papers and reports, things will come up in a way that's very graphic that needs to be attended to or investigated. And the last, social emotional behaviors. And with the social emotional behaviors, this group of behaviors, if you will, not all are saying that they're going to be active shooters. Not all are saying that they're going to be potential killers, if you will, or even indulge in suicide ideation. However, you still want to have an opportunity to delve in and explore and have conversation. And then if it takes it to the level, of referring out, then they need to have that happen. So next slide. So social media, I talked about that. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, that's where the young folks are. Some are still on Facebook, if you will, but for the most part, it's those Instagram and the TikToks where the videos are, and Snapchat comes on and leaves a little sudden. I guess I believe that, and I don't have a Snapchat account, but I know that they come on and it goes off quickly. As I was doing my research, the TikTok is where many of the kids will, because of the short videos and interactive, and then the Instagram and Twitter, they can post, and they post, as I said, raw emotions and thoughts. Next slide. So how many teens actually have social media access? According to the report, 95% of my 12 to 17-year-olds use the internet. Now, I do know, of course, that they have to use it for school, and especially now since virtual learning or hybrid learning it's a must because of COVID and things of that nature. So it's probably have increased even more so than this 95%. But they are using the social media sites, and it's stating that Facebook, which is, owns Instagram, is the most heavily adopted, with 94%. And I'm thinking that when I saw that, I said that was probably because of Instagram, because most of your young people, and I'm speaking of my 12, and I'll even go as young as 10, because they're on TikTok. Those 10-year-olds are on TikTok. From 10 until about 17, the choice is Instagram and TikTok for them as well. And so again, according to the Pew Research Center, 92%, and they took it down to 13. I'll take it a little younger because of the students I've worked with, go online every day. And 24% of them state they are online constantly. So when we're saying that issues used to happen in the past where there was a fight and it was over at the end of the day, or it was over the next week, social media keeps those disgruntled, those fights, those bad feelings ongoing, because a student can go back and see where someone has posted something about them. And so here are some social emotional warnings for my parents and my grandparents. And thank you for filling the chat up so that we would know who's in the audience. Thinking of your children and your grandchildren and nieces. I know that there was an uncle on there, nieces, and even students and children in the community that you interface with, your neighbors. They were really bubbly and excited, and then all of a sudden they're suddenly withdrawn. They're not, coming to see you over the fence like they used to be, or you don't see them participating in the after school activities, or when the family gets together, they stay in their room now, or they don't want to be included in any of the family activities like they used to be. Bullying is still a factor, that, and social media definitely is a part of that, where the students can be bullied, cyber bullied, we call it, when it's on social media. And at that time, a lot of students, they are aware of it. The bystanders and my influencers, they are aware of it. And a lot of times the students won't say anything. And so we're working with students to share and to stand up or let an adult know if they don't want to get involved when they're seeing someone bullied. Irritability, again, that's that mood swing, again, more so than often with that particular young person that is out of the norm. Lack of patience, again, when you are with your young person and you are aware of their personality or their phases of development that they're in, but it's a little different now. It's just not them going through hormonal changes. You can see that the littlest things that you used to say, or a criticism to assist them with something or recorrection, they fall apart, they cry, they fall out, something totally different than what they were doing in the past. Perhaps a look at that, take a little deeper dive in that as well. Angers quickly, and kind of all of them are in the same department, if you will, but I wanted to kind of list them because someone might not have a lack of patience, but they anger quickly. Someone may not be angry, but they're withdrawn. And so I wanted to kind of list them by one to kind of hit perhaps one of those emotional warning signs. Chronic loneliness or social isolation. Like I said, they used to come around when the family is together and they're up in their room, or they don't want to be bothered. It's one thing if they're just a teenager and is saying, oh, I'm just, on the video game or something like that. But if it's constant, and if it's something a little different and you're feeling that way, that something is wrong, begin that conversation. And we'll talk about that a little later. I just want to go through the warning signs. Expressing persistent thoughts of harming self or others. Again, paying attention to what the students are engaged in doing. I had one student to share that her friend was cutting herself. And of course, no one knew because she had her long sleeves on. And so she said, but I don't want you all to tell that I told you. And so, I shared with her that I was in confidence. And so we were able to get the young lady help, not stating that anyone came and told us anything, but we would have never known that she was hurting herself unless the one friend came up to share with us in the school that her friend was hurting herself, and the parents had no idea. So again, expressing thoughts to others, expressing those harm of self to others. And this young lady had enough wherewithal to say, I don't want to be a bystander. And this was middle school. And she came to ask for some help for her friend. Making direct threats, person, place, or thing. Again, let's go back to social media. I'm going to blow the school up on Tuesday. There's a hit list on Wednesday. If you go to the skating rink, well, just before COVID, this is going to happen, or I'm going to do this to myself. So again, making those direct threats, err on the side of caution. And we encourage all, take all threats serious. So, he or she's just blowing off steam. Well, these days we can't just be that cavalier about that. And so when we hear something, we say something, so that, and we're teaching students to do so that we all can be safe in environments, especially in school. Bragging access to guns and weapons, showing you got a gun on social media, talking to others about what you have access to, making sure that all of the students, again, are aware that if you have a friend that if you are in a situation like that, leave immediately. Not try to talk anybody out of anything, leave immediately. There are certain situations that we just have to give students or our children coping skills to deal with, or those type of skills to make decisions for themselves on the spot. Recruiting accomplices or having an audience. Many times in school, they want an audience. Things are happening in the school, or try to recruit those that we are going to beat you up, or we are going to get you after school. Being understanding about that is and aware, and when you hear certain things. And the last one, directly expressing a threat with a plan. And that's when that's a red flag. That's a neon sign. When students have a plan that I have a hit list, or this is how I'm going to do it, the next steps are definitely taken at that point. And we'll go through that in the next slide too. Here's one, if Alvin goes back, and then I'm going to hand it over to him. Here's a copy of an actual drawing from a middle schooler that stated, I don't like my family and I don't like myself. So it didn't take me long to understand what this child was trying to say. And so again, when you get or receive or you see drawings such as this or those of the like, then that's when actions need to be taken. Next slide.
So those who dehumanize others will do humane things to others. What you think about that thought? When we dehumanize each other with name calling, put downs, then we're able to do inhumane things to others. The first art of war is really to dehumanize the people you're fighting against. You name call them, you put them down. And most of you, if you think about your own personal lives, when you were even as children, when you were in fights, you called each other names. And that's a reason that we do that. It's a psychology to why we do that. Because if I can dehumanize you in my mind, I don't see you as a human being, I can do cruel things to you. And I believe that's the God in all of us, that when I call you by your name, if I say Chip, I call Chip, I see Chip as a human. But if I call Chip out of his name, another name, then I'm able to dehumanize him. So that's an important point to remember as we go on. So our mind, we have pathways. We have a lot of choices out here. We have a lot of pathways. Which way do we really go? And which way we go depends on this. Where your attention goes, energy flows, and that's what grows. So here's the psychology of the mind and the brain. The brain have pathways, right? If you think about something long enough, I put it this way: if we shovel the snow, or you walk across the grass, you keep walking across the grass, you created a pathway, right? And weeds and grass grow on the side. So people like to go the place of less resistance. So if you think a certain way, that is your pathway. That's your go-to. So kids are angry, upset, that's their go-to. So we want to teach them where your attention, whatever you put attention to, energy will flow that way, and that's what grows. Ants. Everybody know what ants is, correct? Everybody know what ants are, right? We've seen ants. And ants are in our head, right? And ants here is automatic negative thoughts. Anybody have automatic negative thoughts? We can't do anything about that. Thoughts, we see the news, we are surrounded by negativity, we hear it everywhere we go. And it's okay to have thoughts, but it's what you do with them. And that's what we're gonna have to teach our young people. How do we process these negative thoughts? Okay, you can't stop a bird from flying over your head, but you can stop a bird from building a nest. So with these thoughts, when I worked in the school system, the young people say, I have these thoughts. I say, listen, what do you do when you watch television? And there's something that comes on you don't want to see. They say, well, Mr. Sims, I turned the channel. We have to turn the channel. We can't stay in that space or that place. We have to move from there. So emotions, I want you to understand, emotions can hijack logic every time. What do you mean? Well, I'm trying to lose some weight, but if somebody brings some pizza over, it's an emotional for me. And so it overrides what I want to do. Knowing does not always compute to doing. A lot of choices we've made, and we all made them. And so when we're looking at these graphs and we're talking about these things, I don't want you to just think about the young people, make the application to yourself as well. We all have emotions that override logic. We've all made bad choices and decisions. So how do we help our young people deal with this? And what we want our young people to do, most and foremost, and what's missing in our world, in our community, is empathy. Empathy. And empathy is the ability to understand and share the feeling of others. We lack empathy. We've lived in isolation, not just because of COVID. Most of us are old enough to know that we played games outside that caused us to be social. 4 square, 2 square, Mother May I, hide and go seek, tag. Those type of games cause us to interact with each other without any adults around. If they say you were out, okay, you argue, well, I know I'm not out. Yes, you were. You go back to the end of the line and you start over. That's what we did. But our young people now are on computers. They're on computers playing games. And if things don't go right with our young people, they can reset, they can cut the person off, they can start all over again. But unfortunately, life is not like that. There's not always a reset button in life. And so our young people get frustrated. Because of their frustration, they start picking up weapons. They start fighting. So now what do we need to teach them? Critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is the intellectual discipline process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and or evaluating information gathered from a generated by observation, experience, reflections, reasoning, or communication. In short, it's a guide to a belief in action. Critical thinking skills, cause and effect, the golden rule, all the things that we've learned through life. Think about what you're thinking about, right? And so that's what we want our young people to have. If we can give them empathy, if we can give them critical thinking skills, a lot of the things that we're going through, we won't see in our community. So one of the major things I want our young people to have, and all people to have, is what we call emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. Now, a lot of the young people who are shooters or who are having issues, they have academics, they have IQ, but they don't have EQ. They have IQ. They smart, they know all about the universe, all about the world, but they don't have EQ. EQ is one of the most important things you can have, which is emotional intelligence. This is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to fairly handle interpersonal relationships empathetically. The capacity to be aware of yourself. I'm getting angry, I'm getting upset. My body is talking to me, my body is telling the story. My heart is beating faster. My heart is pumping, right? I'm sweaty, I'm angry, I'm upset. You have to be aware of yourself. Emotional intelligence is the key to both personal and social success. Personal and social success. If I don't love me, it's difficult for me to love other people. I cannot give what I don't have. So emotional intelligence is what we want our young people to obtain. Now, one thing I know about feelings and emotions is this. What emotions and feelings do, they tell us what's important. I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm frustrated. It tells us how we feel. Emotions are only data. And most people, not just young people, because we can tell by the recent road shootings down the freeways and drive-by shootings on the freeway, emotions are data. Somebody drive by you, oh, he pulled in front of me, I'm upset. Okay, but listen, it's not directions. Emotions are not directions. I want you to understand that. If you learn nothing else, emotions are not directions. I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm sad. I'm sad does not mean I need to go drink, take some pills. I'm frustrated. I'm angry does not mean I need to slap somebody. I'm angry does not mean I need to go get a gun. They're not directions, it's only data. It tells you how you're feeling, but it does not tell you what to do. Emotions tell us how much attention to give a situation. And sometimes we get stuck, we stay there too long. And we have to just understand and teach our children law and impermanence. The law and impermanence means that everything will change. Nothing stays the same. It's the ebb and flow of life. There are going to be some good days, there's going to be some bad days, some good moments, some bad moments, but it's going to change. And we have to just teach them to hold on and hold out, to buckle your emotional seatbelts on. It's going to get greater later. The sun will come out tomorrow. It is not permanent. So the law of impermanence is important to teach our young people. So not only do we need to teach them emotional intelligence, we have to teach them emotional literacy, to be literate, to be able to express yourself. Now, as a therapist, I work with a lot of married couples. Women can express themselves way better than men, and men don't. And that's why we see a lot of domestic violence. A woman has the gift of gab, they can talk, they can share. Some men call their mouths weapons of mass destruction. I'm not saying that, but they are very good at using their mouths as tools and weapons. And men sometimes get frustrated and they strike women. So because they don't have the ability to express themselves. So the ability to put words to your feelings and your emotions, emotional literacy. We need to be aware of our emotional traumas, right? By being willing to feel our sore spots. What do you mean, Alvin, by feeling your sore spots? When you go to the doctor, they might touch you here. They say, does it hurt here? No. Does it hurt here? No. Does it hurt here? Yes, that's where it hurts. If we're not aware of where we're hurting, we can't talk about it. So we need to be aware of our emotional traumas by being willing to feel our sore spots long enough to attach words to them, to develop emotional literacy and begin to process them, not with emotions, but with a rational mind. Words create your reality. I don't know, I don't understand. No, I don't know that I'm going to get it. How do you feel? So I'm going to give you a list of words here to look at, a list of words that we need to teach people, because if you're angry, does that mean you're grumpy, you're frustrated, annoyed, defensive? If you're sad, are you mournful, regretful, depressed, and so forth? If you're anxious, you're afraid, are you stressed, bewildered, worried? What does that look like? They need to have language. So once you attach language, words to your feelings and emotions, then they can be addressed. Hurt, I'm hurt. Am I jealous? Victimized? I feel abandoned? I feel rejected? What am I hurt about? What's causing the pain? Embarrassed, isolated. And unfortunately, a lot of our shooters and people go through this, they feel isolated. They go down the rabbit hole. They feel like they're in a dark space. They feel like they are alone. There's no connections. Let me share this with you. I worked at Detroit Finney High School. I took 3 guns off of students. When we talk about gun situations, it's because I had a relationship. As the dean of students, I had a relationship with my students, all of them, the good and the indifferent. I'm not going to call them bad because I don't believe in bad children. I just believe in children who make bad choices. But all of my children I had a relationship with. And at 3 separate times over several years, I took 3 guns off of children. My students would come to me and say, Mr. Sims, little Johnny got a gun. I'll call little Johnny in my office. What's going on? And he'll talk to me. Well, Mr. Sims, some guys are bothering me. They're chasing me. Who are they? We'll talk about that. So what do you have on? Have on you? And then reluctantly, he said, I have a gun. I said, put it on my desk and let's talk about this. Well, you know, we did that. We called the police and we handled it. 3 different times I've done that. So one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit later, you have to build a relationship where kids or young people trust you. Even when they're angry and they're upset and they do the wrong thing, they trust you because they know that you care about them. Children, it's a saying that children don't care about how much you know. They care about how much you care. That's what they want to know. That's all they want to know. So a list of words here to help young people to be able to verbalize and articulate themselves. Being literate. What does being literate do? And I'm saying this, I'm staying on this for a moment because it's really important, because people, they don't talk enough about their feelings. They don't process it. I call it being, if you will, for lack of a better word, almost emotionally constipated. They hold things in. And my wife told me a long time ago, if you take a pop bottle and you shake up a pop bottle and you take off the top, it explodes all over you. A lot of our young people are shaken up. They're being bullied. They feel isolated. They feel rejected. They feel abandoned. It's a whole lot of things that's going on in the school. And unfortunately, in smaller towns, they don't have the access, and they kind of lock themselves into situations. So what does being emotional literate, how does it help us? It helps us to effectively communicate the feelings we experience, to be aware of the impact these can have on your own life and on the lives of those around us. It helps us to effectively communicate. It helps us to understand unchecked emotions can have potentially harmful effects on our lives and the lives of others. Unchecked emotions, right? They just pop up, they come up. You ever been driving down the street, something just pop up, where'd that come from? You try to shake your head, it's not gonna go away because it's an unchecked emotions. So until you deal with emotion and resolve it, it's gonna keep hunting you. It's gonna come up. And our young people don't have the skills or the tools to do that. And so they come up in a negative and sometimes a very, very destructive way. Being literate helps us address the difference between perception and reality. Perception and reality. Sometimes people think one way, they see things one way based on their own emotional filters, but this is the reality. Everybody hates me, which is a global word. Do everybody really hate you? Nobody likes me. Nobody wants to be with you. We use all these global words, but the truth of the matter is that's not reality. So they hear and see things on social media, television, and music videos. That's not real. They really believe, unfortunately, the things that they see on social media, television, and music and videos as real. It also helps us to see the possible impact of what a lack of understanding of our emotions and feelings can lead to. An out of control life full of challenges and recovery. The people in Oxford right now, there's a lot of challenges going on. And there's a lot of recovery going on because of the lack of these skills. So we want to teach our young people how to be self-regulated individuals. Self-regulated, balanced, is the ability to deal with life stressors. Life is going to happen. Things are going to happen. It's going to, every seed needs the rain and the sunshine to grow. So we need negative things and positive things to grow, the stretchers, the good and the bad. All of these things help us learn to be self-regulated because we realize that, wow, I've been through here, I've been in this space before, and I'm okay. I've had good times before and I'm okay. So we have our high highs and our low lows, right? We stay in what we call our resilience zone. And our resilience zone says that you're going to have the mountaintop moments and you're going to have valley moments. That's life. You can have your good days and you're going to have bad days. Doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. You're going to go through some ups and downs and ebbs and flows of life. And when you get too high, you become hyperactive. You go out, you're doing too much. And then if you go too low, you be hypoactive, sad and depressed. So you have to stay balanced. You have to stay balanced. You have to go up and down because we know if a line is straight, a straight line in the hospital means you're dead. But you have to have ups and downs, and those are things that we need in life. So this is the ability to deal with life stressors in an efficient and a constructive manner that allows you to stay within your resilience zone, having the ability to stay calm and focused on the present moment. It's about being balanced. Too many of us or too many people live in the future. Some live in the past. One thing I know about the past is simply a place of reference. It's not a place of residence. We can't live in our past. And we can't live in the future because we haven't got there yet. So we have to teach our young people to cross that bridge. And that's what causes anxiety and stress because we don't stay in the moment. So ABCs, we all learned our ABCs. What does ABCs really mean here? ABCs means teaching our young people, teaching our parents, what's the antecedent? What happens before the behavior? Understand what happens before the behavior. Okay, I punched them, I slapped them, I cursed them out. What happened? They said something. That was the antecedent. What was your behavior? Now I want them to understand consequences. We have to teach them there are consequences for choice. Again, because you felt angry and upset did not give you the right. There are consequences. So helping them and teaching them basic lessons like ABCs, antecedent, behavior, consequences. If you want to take antecedent out, being angry, behavior, consequences. Anger, if you put a D in front of anger, you get danger. A D in front of anger, danger. So we have to be able to think and process, and we want to teach our young people these things. So what do we do with a potential active shooter? If we think we have a potential active shooter, these are the 3 I's, right? What do we do? What do we look at? What do we need to do to help not only support the active shooters, support everyone else involved? Identify them. Now, my wife gave you some things that you can identify, and these are red flags that she gave you. It does not mean a person will be an active shooter, but they have the potential. Potential is the operative word. So it's better to err on the side of what? Caution. Instead, so I think Chip talked about it earlier. We don't always want to be reactive. We want to be proactive. So if we identify students isolated, who's posting things, who's saying things, we might need to identify them, and then we need to what? Interrupt them. We need to interrupt them by having them talk to a counselor, talking to some people, talking to his family, surround them, put some things together to help them. Talk to them about what are you thinking about? What's going on? What is the meaning of these things? And then we need to inoculate them, right? Put people, places, and things around him to support the person we need you to become. Identify potential active shooter, interrupt what he's doing, and then inoculate them, surround them with people, places, and things, whether it's a mentor, Big Brothers Club, a religious event, church, whatever we need to put in place to inoculate them. So how do we inoculate them? I told you I was a trainer in restorative practice. Restorative practice is really, really important, right? Restorative practice is a social science that studies how to improve and repair relationships between people and communities. Active shooters, something is going on. They're mad, they're angry at somebody, and they feel whether it's a fact, whether it's true or not, that something is broken, right? And the purpose is to build healthy communities, increase social capital, decrease anti-social behavior, repair harm, and restore the relationships. So we want to restore relationships before they get damaged and permanently destroyed. Now, there are 5 R's in restorative practice. Relationships, right? Relating. A relationship is 2 people relating in a ship or more. So how do we relate in the ship? We have to take ownership on what we bring into the ship, right? We have to take ownership of our feelings, our emotions, our behaviors, so that we all can relate together on the ship and move it forward. We need respect. How do we respect each other? What does that look like? So we need to have conversations about respect. I told you if you dehumanize people, you can do inhumane things to them. But if you respect them and see them as human beings, as people, then these things will not come up. Responsibility. You have to take ownership into the relationship. Take ownership of what you're bringing onto the ship, right? Then repair it. When you do wrong, it's okay. We all make mistakes. How do we repair it? How do we repair it, right? And reintegration. And once we find a person who has some issues, where they had to go to counseling, once they had to even go to a mental health facility to get some help and support, how do we reintegrate? How do we bring them back in to the community, right? Whether it's a school community, what community, how do we sit down and talk to them and embrace them and let them know that they're not alone? At the heart of every restorative process is a damaged relationship between the person who caused the harm, the recipient of the harm, and the community in which the harm was felt. Right now in Oxford, it's a community that's damaged, that was harmed. How do we help them, build the relationships again, the respect, be responsible for one another? How do we help them to repair and to reintegrate back as a community? And then whether it's in the school, restorative practice promotes inclusiveness. Oftentimes, the shooter does not feel included, feel isolated, didn't make the football team, the basketball team, laughed. I don't know, maybe he has some physical ailments. I don't know all the answers, but they need to feel included. Relationship building and problem solving through such restorative methods. And we put them in circles for teaching and conflict resolution to conferences and bring the victims, the offenders, and the supporters together to address the wrongdoings. That's restorative practice. That's a training they need to have in all schools to train teachers, staff, and the students. How do we resolve issues? Because issues will arise, but how do we resolve them in a peaceful and a meaningful way that's going to restore the community? And another training, I'm just sharing these 2 trainings, the social resilience model, is the teaching and training of the method called the social resilience model. It's SRM, a neuroscience-based approach to dealing with stress, de-stress, and trauma. It's a holistic approach. I'm sorry. It's a holistic approach. It's something I really loved. The training was awesome. This is the one that teaches you where your thoughts go, energy flows. That's what grows. Talks about your nervous system. It talks about the body. The body tells the story, being aware of your body, how to ground yourself, how to resource yourself, how to understand what's going on, how to stay in the moment. So it's a mind-body connection. And people understood what was going on inside their body, then they understand what's going on inside their mind, and then they can make better choices. So this is another training I would highly recommend that staff and students utilize. Cynthia, can you take over from here?
Do we have any questions in the chat right now before going on? How are we on time, Chip? Because I know it's a lot of information.
Your mic is not on, Chip. Your mic is not on.
Famous last words. We can't hear you. I do not see any questions. I will just have to say the depth of detail you've presented is phenomenal. And there is so much here, but let me have you go on, so we do have time for questions. Do you see you going on another 10, 15 minutes, or how long will you be?
Probably about 10, correct, Alvin? About 10, because I think we're really winding down, right? Because I'm getting to the supports.
Yeah, about 10 minutes, and I hope it's my
Okay.
batteries.
I know some people may have to sign off, but we will record this, but I would like to keep as many because of the depth of detail you're going into. And I think we're hitting a lot of really important points here. So let me let you go ahead, and then we'll hit the questions after you're done.
That'll
Thank
work.
you.
Chip.
Great
Thank you,
presentation. Absolutely fabulous.
Great. Thank you so much, Chip. So we'll keep going. Parent support. So here's some options or resources for parents, and I'll have some even identified later in the just before we end. So community forums such as this is great. I know we prefer face-to-face, but we have to pivot now to our virtual lives. And so community forums, may it be face-to-face or virtual. Parent groups, and when I'm speaking of parent groups at your local churches, at your schools, as Alvin stated, Boys and Girls Clubs, things of that nature, we still have those organizations that are around or places that parent groups should pivot and now be able to support. And when I mean pivot from the face-to-face to Zoom until we can go back to face-to-face, but parent support is there. It is still available for you. Family talks, it is time, the holidays are approaching us, correct? And so with family talk, I plan on doing the family festivities. The youngest of our children, we have 3 children, the youngest is 25, but we're having conversation with his age group on down to the grands now. And this is the time to have those conversations just to see how's everything going at school? How was the semester? How do you know what's going on? Start digging deep into the children in your lives situation. We just got a call before here that one of the little ones had an anxiety attack. So when I get off the phone, Zoom with you, I'm going to be calling her mom to say, what do you mean anxiety? And to have a conversation with her. And so, again, it's a good time during the holidays to have those kind of heart-to-heart talk with your children and grandchildren and those that's in your family or close friends of the family. Limit news exposure. I'll tell you, when the Oxford shootings occurred, I was watching every news station, and I got, really, really overwhelmed. I as a mom, I sympathize because I haven't lost any children, but I sympathize with the moms. It was really too much. And Alvin said, you're going to have to limit your news exposure. And I had to do that. So sometimes we have to take a step back to regroup. And so I said, let me put that in there to parents as well. We want to be informed, but again, we don't want to overindulge that we're no good either. And so I just wanted to share that with you. Watch for signs of stress and fear and anxiety in your children, in your nieces and nephews. Right now, I believe it's an epidemic. They're saying mental health. We had a mental health crisis with our children in the nation. And they're talking about it's because of COVID and some other things that are happening. I am in belief that we had issues and stressors before, and now with COVID, it's just compacted or compound, I should say, what our children are dealing with. And so that anxiety in their minds is real, and having conversations to see where they are so we can lift to our children and also be able to support them throughout this entire ordeal. And when they're seeing and hearing things on television, and they're hearing and seeing that these things are for real with the school shootings, is it my school next? Then remember, we had the copycats across the Tri-County area. And so again, you have children that were not in Oxford, but now they're in fear of going to school because we had the copycat. So watch for the signs of stress, fear, and anxiety in your children. And then self-care. I'm sorry. And then self-care. Make sure that you are taking care of your mental health. As well, may it be soft music or long walks, some type of self-care for yourself. I love comedies, so I'll look for an old comedy to watch to just bring humor, because it's just so much that is going on in the lives of our little people, and it's overwhelming. So for parents, we have to take care of ourselves, and grandparents, we have to take care of ourselves so that we are able to take care of our children and their mental health. We'll go to the doctor when it's a headache or a stomach ache or you need, but our mental health, we're not taking care of our mental state. And what I mean by that is the signs for your stress and your anxiety that might overcome you, that you're not able to take care of your children as well. Alvin, next slide. And I think the next one is going to be that's okay. I believe the next ones are going to be the resources. Oh, okay, the video. So this is a 2-minute video, 2-minute video.
You think I'm pretty without any makeup on?
You think I'm funny when I get the punchline wrong.
I know you get me, so I let my walls come down.
Before you met me, I was alright. But things were kind of heavy. You brought me to life.
Now every February, you'll be my Valentine.
Let's go all the way tonight. No regrets, just love. We can
Dance until we die. You and I
will be young forever. You make me
Feel like I'm living a teenage dream. I can't sleep.
Let's run away and don't ever look back.
Don't ever look back.
Don't ever look back.
don't ever look back. Don't ever look back. Don't ever look back.
Thank you, Alvin, for making sure that video worked for me tonight. So with that video, and it's heavy, those children all survived in various school shootings physically, but they haven't escaped mentally the trauma that they're going through. And so this is a public service announcement that the Sandy Hook's Promise out of the Sandy Hook mass shootings have come up with. And these are young people that have survived. And it just it brings it home of the work that we still have to do and the trauma in which the students or these young people will live with forever. Anger doesn't solve anything. It builds nothing, but it can destroy everything. And so we have to just keep that in mind as we're working towards prevention to address. Here are some mental health resources that I just came up with. I don't have an affiliation with any of them that I just wanted to put in place for those who are, and I believe that this is going to be taped. So this is great. So this is for Wayne County. And I believe, Alvin, if you go to the next slide for me, I did include national, and then I also put, I did include Oakland County as well. Let's see, is that? And then also sources, I did include the sources in which what we did the research from, if anyone wanted to, dig deeper or delve deeper. And then I believe with some internet resources as well. Sandy Hook has done a lot of great work since 1999. It was many of the parents had come up with the sandyhookpromise.org. And that's where the video I was able to get to share with you tonight in regards to, and this is how they put their pain to purpose. And, I'm sure that Oxford in another year or so will be able to do the same moving forward of putting the pain to a purpose to help others. And Sandy Hook has done a phenomenal job with doing so since that horrific mass shooting. And Ed Week and the others are good as well with updated data in regards to mass shootings in schools of that nature. And I believe, Alvin, is one more, and then we can.
Yeah, I just want to say this before we end, because we're just about ready to end. I just want people to walk away understanding that 98% of people with mental illness do not shoot. Everybody with a mental illness do not shoot. Okay, so we have to find different ways to address the issue, because every time the issue comes up, we say, oh, they were mentally ill. Mental illness is fluid and it's static. Today you could be out of it, the next week you're okay. But what we have to do, we have to deal with the elephant in the room, and we have to figure out better ways of dealing with guns in America. And I don't want to make a political statement. That's not what this is about, but we just have to be honest and open about this. People do not do drive-bys and throw rocks out the window and kill people. They don't throw sticks out the window. They use guns. So we have to figure out a better way of protecting our students and young people from guns. That's my commercial. So
Alvin, with questions, I know we're here now, Chip, with the questions, but also we have a ticket for exit, Alvin. So, but as Chip, go ahead and.
There's what we have. Well, first of all, I want to thank you both. You went to exhaustive lengths to present in-depth detail. And I have to thank you. I mean, that was outstanding. And we have one question here, then we'll open it up to anyone else. It says, do school districts receive training that is restorative justice or techniques to deal with anger?
Yes, I was restorative practice training for the district, and I trained about over 4,000 teachers and principals. So some outside schools call me in, and I do training for them as well. So yes, we do restorative practice. Well, I know Detroit Public Schools. There are other schools around the state, some places in the state, I know around the countries. So restorative practice and restorative justice is a big thing to help people to repair harm. But before we go on, if you could, as you talk and ask your questions, if you could look at this, this is your exit ticket. If someone could just share at least one thought that was helpful this evening, or this one takeaway from this presentation that you will try to implement in the future. Okay, now we're going to segue back into your questions.
Let me open it up to questions from the group that's on. If you have questions based on the detail that was presented here, or comments, either questions or comments. Here's a question. Are other countries experiencing the same type of school or youth shootings as we are here in the United States?
Say that again. You broke up, Chip. What did you say?
Are other countries experiencing the same level of shootings that we seem to be experiencing here in the United States?
No. I did some research on that. No, no, they're not.
Other questions, comments from the group?
Why do you think that is, Alvin?
Well, it's probably a multiplicity of reasons why. You know, the United States is a melting pot. We have different cultures, different religious backgrounds. Most countries are usually one or two different religious groups, and they're guided, their laws and their country is guided by their religious concepts or beliefs. And some of them, the limitation, I know I was in Japan, well, Japan doesn't even have guns. The police not even allowed to carry guns. So I think those are the main reasons, the diversity in culture. We look at poverty, and other countries have poverty as well, but how they handle it and how they process it. I think it's so much freedom here that it's also dangerous. You know, we allow so much to happen. The other countries just don't allow what we allow. I don't know. That's just some of the answers, not all of the answer.
Go ahead, Kitty.
Mr. and Mrs. Sims, this is to both of you. Do you think the implication I gathered was that the internet and internet access that our children have plays a major role in the violence we're seeing? Do you agree?
Absolutely.
I totally agree. And that's why I was sharing that the monitoring of children and the young age of them that are on. I mean, my 9 and 10-year-olds, you know, I service students at young people at my church, as well as, you know, when I was in the school district. And you're talking about 9, 10-year-olds on TikTok, on Instagram, and not monitored. And so they can go into areas that they shouldn't be in, although it'll say for mature audiences only. Well, if the child can get on that website, they're still absorbing that information. So absolutely.
And so not only that, Ms. Whitfield, you're a young lady. You're not old as I am.
I love you, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Sims. I got a little excited. Got a little excited there. Okay.
So when I was raised, young people didn't sit around the older people because they shouldn't be exposed to all the things that adults deal with. Well, with the event, and plus, when I grew up, television went off at a certain time of day. That was it. Flag came out, the song came on. That was it. Kids have television 24/7. They're exposed to television, the music, everything. It's a lot of negativity, and this stuff have normalized the abnormal and made it okay. So when I saw a horror movie back then, I jumped. These kids laugh at it. So yeah. We have made them immune to pain. They can shoot, they can hurt, doesn't bother them. So a lot of it comes from social media, television, the music, our culture, the world we live in has changed so rapidly, and kids are exposed to too much too soon. I give you an example. When I worked in one school, they had a 5th grader walk down the hallway looking at pornography. I said, well, where'd you get that? This is my mother's phone. I call her. She said, that's my phone. I'll come and get it. But they expose it to things too young. They're smart intellectually, but emotionally, they can't handle all of this stuff. They can't unpack it, and they try to unpack it. They download it, and when they try to unpack it, it comes out the wrong way.
Not to put you on the spot, but the internet's not going anywhere. What do we do? What do we do as adults?
It. My wife said, monitor it, monitor our children, keep it away as much as possible. It's really like a Pandora's box. It's like we brought the devil in the house. We gave it to our kids and say, don't, don't touch this, don't eat this. But, it's like putting alcoholic in a bar and say, don't
Yeah.
take a drink,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of almost really, we just got to monitor it, pray that it gets better.
Well, a meaningful presentation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
pass the plate. I'm gonna pass the plate to you.
How about other questions or comments? We have a couple minutes left here to the bottom of the hour here. Anyone else like to weigh in here on this conversation? Mary Jo.
I was just going to say, I work at the Family Center of Grosse Pointe and Harper Woods, and Chip is vice president of the board. One thing that we've been doing is working with our schools and giving some free therapy to the counseling staff, the teachers, the administrative staff. They are having so much stress right now, as we all know. So the last 2 days we provided therapy for them, and they've asked for it on a regular basis in the future. We're doing podcasts for parents on some of the important things that you said about not having, the television on with all this violence on while the kids are in the room, because so many families now have a TV in the kitchen and that's on all the time. And it's so wrong for those kids to see that all day. So we're doing podcasts. Some of these parents are so busy, they're working all day and at home with the kids at night. So we're finding that we can reach them with podcasts with information that they need. But this was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. When 2020 came around, when you talk about television and being inundated and digesting negativity, and my wife, she stayed on CNN, she stayed on all 4 news stations. With the elections, with COVID, Black Lives Matter, so much, we was inundated by so much. I started watching cartoons. I had to unplug from this world and start watching Bugs Bunny, Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Three Stooges. I had to upload something joyful in my spirit, because when you keep downloading and listening to this, the doom and the gloom of the world, kids get frustrated. They become hopeless. They don't see any hope. And we gotta get them hope and possibilities and joy. This is,
We had to, as adults, we had to cut it off. We can only imagine how our children felt, because it was overwhelming us. We became emotional about it. So I can't even imagine a little person.
Yeah, we social people. With COVID, we had to isolate. And when we isolated, we saw domestic violence go up. We saw child abuse go up because you locked in with the people that you don't like. And we're social beings. We're not made to isolate. But because of COVID, that's what happens. And COVID taught us a lot of lessons about isolation.
Chip, there's a couple of messages in the chat box.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Let me go there. I'm so involved in listening here. Okay.
But I do have to leave, everyone, but thank you. I really enjoyed this. And thank you for having me.
Kitty, thank you. Is this more prevalent in certain socioeconomic communities than others? Is a question. I will be that first one.
Well, yeah, I guess we know that white males are the primary shooters, and we know they're usually shooting in smaller rural areas. We don't know all the dynamics of why that is. I think too, it's isolated. Sometimes when people move out and build walls, sometimes they wall other people out and they wall themselves in. And just like with the COVID, when you're locked in, sometimes a person who's being bullied, he might say a small community might only have 1 or 2 churches. Wherever he goes, the bully is there. He goes to the store, the bully is there. Wherever he goes to school, the bully is there. Whereas in a larger city, people have a lot of access to go different places to get away from their tormentor, if you will. So we don't know all of the dynamics of that, but we do know it's pretty much in smaller communities and with white males.
And in addition to that, as you were speaking of, as well as Alvin is speaking, in addition to that, I was looking at something else with shootings. And I'm just going to say a blanket statement about shootings. No matter if it's in school buildings or neighborhoods, the impact is great. And so it may mirror a little different, but the hurt doesn't go away, and the same disdain is there. And so however we look at it, for whatever lens, whatever zip code, whatever culture, a mom that buries a child hurts. Children who live through it, and you saw in the video, are traumatized probably forever. And so how we look at supporting those different areas will depend on the resources that's available. And so that's where the great divide perhaps might be. I love when the young woman is talked about the podcast and the therapy for staff. That's not happening across all zip codes. I know that for sure. And so when we look at how do we support all, is when you have community forums such as this to dialogue and say, hey, I heard in this setting, they're doing podcasts and all the staff are getting therapy as much as they want when they want, not that they have to do it on their own. And so when we come together and share resources like this, I think we make it better for all.
Yeah, in addition to that, the second part of the question was economically. It doesn't matter if you're middle class, lower class, or upper class. If you feel isolated, you feel a sense of hopelessness, then and frustration, then people will act out in those kind of ways.
Absolutely.
I'm reading a book on compassion, and the overall consensus is that empathy is on the decline in our society.
Yes, that's why I pointed out critical thinking skills. It's something we learned as young people. The golden rule: you treat others as you want them to be treated. It's real simple. But with reality television, you see people putting down each other, fighting each other, hurting each other. And so now young people are inundated into this, and that becomes their reality. We grew up with our foundation was totally different when we grew up. We didn't see that. We didn't hear the stuff in the music that they hear. We talked about peace and love. Some of us grew up in the 60s, and but these young people growing up with reality TV and shock TV, and the more shock you can do and hurt people, the better off. TikTok is telling young kids to slap teachers, to do things that are harmful to themselves. So their programming is a lot different from ours. So we have to try to get back to, we never can take them back to where we were, but the values and principles need to be the same. It's about loving each other.
Right.
Absolutely. We got about a minute left. Any other comments or questions here from the group? I'll just say that the breadth and depth of this presentation was fantastic.
Agreed.
You covered so much, and that's one of the things we try to do is create the awareness, because as you go through this, one thing may resonate with you, one part of that, and it's creating that awareness so that video doesn't become something that happens here. You need to be proactive, and that's what you did such a great job in presenting this, to be proactive, to make all of us that are on here aware, to look out so we don't have that, or at least try to prevent it. Because one thing I've found in what you talked about is that these kids don't act immediately. They think about it and they think it out. And over that period of time, there's going to be a time where you may observe that or see or learn something from this presentation and say, you know something, there's something going on here. I need to pay a little closer attention and at least be able to know where the resources are. So I applaud you both, Alvin and Cynthia, for the presentation, the time you put in. And the other thing is that on behalf of Rivertown, I will get your address. Our logo is behind us, and we always present to our presenters a thank you for your time and effort here in putting together just an awesome presentation. And if we save one life, prevent one event, then this whole meeting was worth it.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much.
Chip.
Tom, any comments from you at all? My partner.
Chip, I want to say one quick thing before I stop talking. I appreciate what you said about that window, right? When you
Yep.
identify something, you have us, because it's a process. They don't just wake up and say, I'm gonna go to shoot.
Right,
It's a
exactly.
process. And when you identify the warning signs, we have a small window to interrupt it, to inoculate it, and try to save lives. So I appreciate you highlighting that and lifting that. For me, this has been awesome. I'm always grateful and thankful to have an opportunity to speak to people, and hopefully we said some things that, and the other thing we did, we used a shotgun approach. Like you said, we didn't know exactly what everybody needed, so we kind of hit on some of everything. Hopefully somebody has something they can take away.
Absolutely right. And maybe there's just one thing that resonates with you or something you've learned. I learned a lot just by listening to both of you, to be able to put that in play and to be able to spread it out. And you may know people, anybody out here might say, hey, this is a great presentation. This group should talk to so-and-so or someone else, so that more and more people get involved. Tom, anything from your side, my partner here?
No, other than the fact that this goes a lot farther even than the violence end of it. The chances are none of us know anybody that's ever going to be involved in a school shooting. I mean, even though there's a lot of them, there's a whole lot of people. But a lot of the information that you related tonight, if it helps one parent develop better communication with their son or daughter, and their son or daughter ends up a happier person because of it, the whole thing is worthwhile.
And that's exactly what we're all about, Alvin and Cynthia. Those of you who've come to the Rivertown meetings, is to be able to provide that forum for this. Because as I said, as I opened, I just can't sit back and not do nothing. We have to do something. And bringing you forward has done that something. So thank you all. I wish everyone a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas. And I will tell you that our next meeting is going to be January 20th, and Chief White is going to be our guest. We will have him to present his objectives and where he's working, and also we'll talk about this program as well. So if everybody, 5 o'clock on the 20th, we hope to see everybody again. And thank you all very much. Have a great weekend. And thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Alvin.
Thank you.
All right.